Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm Kelly Bass, and it's my pleasure, after decades of writing about restaurants for Little Rock newspapers and magazines, to be able to host this podcast and just talk about restaurants and the people who make them great. So thanks to Benny Keith Mid-South Division for giving me the chance to cast a spotlight on chefs and restaurateurs from across this region. Today on Heaping Spoonful, on the Heaping Spoonful hotline, we're talking with Heather Baber-Roe, co-owner with her husband of two Baja Grills, one in the Heights neighborhood of Little Rock, Arkansas, and one in downtown Benton, Arkansas, as well as Valhalla Kitchen Plus Bar, also in Benton, and in the non-culinary realm, the Valkyrie Axe Throwing establishment in the same building. And guess what? There's another cool concept coming fairly soon, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. And I will tell you, the internet is a podcaster's best friend when it comes to researching subjects. And thanks to our friends at AY Magazine, I know a lot more about you and your career today than I knew a few days ago. And so you are clearly many things. You're hardworking, you're creative, you're funny, because only a funny person would have excellent parallel Parker prominently displayed on her Facebook page. And we should have a contest sometime. I lived downtown for 8 years and I worked downtown forever, and I'm pretty good at it too. Sometimes at the Flying Saucer, I sit up front just to watch people attempt to parallel park. But I'll tell you one thing you're clearly not, and that's lazy, because restaurants are not the providence of lazy people, and they've been a big part of your life for pretty much ever, it looks like. So it seems from reading that your grandparents and your parents owned restaurants. Tell our Heaping Spoonful listeners about where those were, what they were, and did you just come there as a kid, or did you actually have a role in either of those or any of those?
Well, when I was born, my parents were very young, like 17 and 20, and they actually owned a steakhouse at the time, which obviously I don't remember. And I think it lasted a couple of years. And my grandparents had a barbecue restaurant that was very popular. You know, people lined out the door, lined down the steps to get in. And these were located in my hometown of Caddo Gap, Arkansas. It's about 50 miles. Yes, it's about 50 miles west of Hot Springs. And both of them closed their restaurants for a couple different reasons. And then once I moved away and went off to college, they reopened my grandparents' barbecue restaurant, and my family owned it. And so I wasn't home, so I didn't work in it. I would come in, or not regularly, I would come in and I would just expect like this grand welcoming that, you know, I was coming into town, and they would be like, "Cool, glad you're here. We need a busser."
Can you pick up some stuff and put it in a tub, right?
Yeah.
So what was the name of the barbecue place that was so popular?
It was Ron's Barbecue.
Wow. All right. Straightforward. Yeah. And so then I read, I guess, either during or after college, you moved to Little Rock and you began working for one of the legends of the dining scene here, who is Jerry Barakat. I go way back with him, and when he had his first terrace in Breckenridge Village in the early 1980s. So he's come a very long way since then. And which of his restaurants did you work, and what did you do with and for Jerry?
I started whenever he was in the process of opening Jasmine's. I was hired as a server, and then a few weeks in was made like lead server. And I was there, and then Gaucho's was losing a few of its veterans, so I transferred to Gaucho's, and I was there when it was on rolling, and whenever he moved it, you know, off of that Shackelford, you know, he bought the old like Tony Roma's building, I think it was. Yeah, and you know, we had wanted such a bigger space forever, and then we got it, and moving a private restaurant to a corporate building is something I say I will never do. And I learned from that experience. It just didn't have that same feel as it did on Raleigh.
Right.
But, still great. Love Gauchos, miss Gauchos. And then he was opening Arthur's, and I went to Arthur's as a server and ended up being a general manager for a while until I just needed to cut back hours. So I was a single mom, and it was just kind of my whole life. And so ran it for a while and then stepped down as server. And so I was with him for 11 years working for him.
That's great. Well, for people who are not from Arkansas or Little Rock, Arthur's is arguably the top steakhouse in town. There'll be some others that contend, but it's a very, very nice, and it's also connected to Ocean's, which is arguably the best sushi and seafood restaurant in town. And so I've known Jerry a long time, and I've watched how he runs his restaurants. What would you say the 2 or 3 things that you kind of learned from working with him that you carry on to your own places today?
Oh, gosh. Well, he's so big, and anybody can attest to this, how big he is on hospitality. And a few things, something people may not know about him is if he can do for you, he will. He's a big giver. He kind of has this tough exterior, but he always does want to help people if he can. And, that was my staff, but also the hospitality. He taught me a lot about that, and he is definitely a perfectionist when it comes to the food and, out in the dining room. He's always scanning, he always sees stuff. And my staff talks about that too, how I see everything. And, obviously Baja is not on the same fine dining level as Arthur's, but I'm very, I have that expectation of wanting everything to be perfect. I know it's not always going to be, but those 2 things, really the hospitality and then just,
right.
That want and trying for perfection for every single guest.
Yeah. And not only is he watching for making sure people are getting what they need, but he's also making them feel welcome. I mean, when you go to a Jerry restaurant and he's there, I mean, you get some of his time, and, some of the restaurants around town that I think do the best is because there's a little bit of a cult of personality of the owner who's there checking things out. And I'm sure that carries out in your restaurants too. So, yeah. So you were a single mom. The restaurant business is all consuming. So you had to say, Jerry, it's been great, but I'm gonna go be mom and do something outside the restaurant world. And I don't know what the time frame was, but you owned and opened a boutique clothing store. Was there much of a gap in between leaving restaurants and doing that? And what was the name of that, and where was it?
That was called Maddox. That's my son's name. I named it after him. It started in Argenta, and then by the end of it, we were located in the Heights, just down the street from Baja. And, that's kind of, why I left, just because I was putting so much time into that store and couldn't really put much of that restaurant. I always treated Jerry's restaurants like they were my own, and I was just getting, worn, spread a little too thin, and so left to do the boutique.
Yeah. Which, again, is a lot of work and a lot of responsibility and a lot of risk, too, Yeah. Because now your own money's tied up in it, not just the owner's money. And so then along the way, you meet this cool guy named Craig Rowe. And he just happened to own a restaurant. I'm sure you're like, oh, great. just when I think I'm getting away, I'm sure the irony was not lost on you. So how did you guys meet, and did that happen just fairly recent, early into your clothing store gig, or?
It was kind of early on into that. We met on the patio out there, actually, at the Heights location, and we were actually, a lot of people don't know this, that we were actually business partners before we were together, and not a lot of business partners work out well, in marriage. And my parents always said, don't go into business with anybody ever. Don't ever have a partner. But and it was going to be temporary at first, just to kind of help with the restaurant. But yes, I did I totally got that, and then just kind of went back in. The restaurant will do that too. Restaurant life will, and I'm sure you know this, and you've heard people say it. But it's like you try to leave, but if it's in you, it just sucks you right back in. So
gotcha. So tell us a little more about his story, because I know that Baja Grill started as a food truck in Benton. And again, Travis Hester of Eat My Catfish has been a Heaping Spoonful guest, and he started in a food truck in Benton, and look where it's gone for him. So, and by the time you guys were hanging out, or you got to know him, he had transitioned to that bricks and mortar spot at the busy corner of University and Kavanaugh, which is in the Heights neighborhood of Little Rock. Can you tell us was he a restaurant guy from way back? How did he get into the food truck and all of that in the first place?
He actually was a restaurant guy. Oh, and Eat My Catfish and Baja, the trucks were in the exact same spot. Little tidbits of info there. Yeah. So it's a good little, a lucky spot, I guess. But no, and Craig had been in the restaurants when he was a teenager, and then was a bartender in his like super early 20s. And then he was a salesman for Kraft Foods whenever he started the food truck. And so, and how that came about was he got super mad at his boss, and he said he would never work for anyone else again. And food trucks were just starting to become a thing. And he said, I'm going to start a food truck. And that's what he did. Yeah. And Craig is good at everything he does except golf, but like literally everything. He's so good. Like right now he's enclosing the patios. While I sit here in my office, but he's out there, doing he's like such a handyman person, and he's out there like building things right now on our patio.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's got one thing he can't do very well, so you always get So how did what led for him to go from the food truck? Because it's a big jump to go bricks and mortar, and also to go from Benton. But then again, back in the old restaurant days, I remember when Darla Huey took Dizzy's from Benton to the River Market area of Little Rock, and I remember that some of her first success was because the people from Benton followed her to Little Rock, and I think I read that a lot of the Baja food truck fans followed Craig to the bricks and mortar location in the Heights.
Yeah, and he tried to put the truck in Little Rock, but Little Rock and Benton had like how you could park it and where you could park it and leave it overnight. There were two totally different like sets of rules, and
I see.
Yeah, and so Benton was kind of like, yeah, cool, park it here, put some tables out, a walk-in cooler, we're fine with you doing that. And so, that's why he chose Benton, and he always spoke very highly of how the city was very welcoming. And then, that the food truck was very successful, and it was 2.5 years old before he decided to do the brick and mortar. And he had looked at a couple spots. He looked at some spots in Bryant and some spots in Little Rock. And then that old satellite cafe building, it was like 6 different restaurants in 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's labeled as like the cursed spot, and it came available, and he grabbed it. And there'd be painting going on inside the restaurant. People would pop their head in and be like, you're not going to last here, right? And then they just close the door. So
that's funny. Well, yeah, but do you remember what year that was?
That was May 2014.
May of 2014. Well, it's 7+ years in. We're recording this in early November 2021. No, and it's a great place. And so let's talk about the food at Baja Grill. And I before we move on to your other ventures. So there are the somewhat expected starters. Again, there's guacamole, there's queso blanco, salsa. I like that you put some meat off into the queso and have some funny verbiage on your menu about that. Guacamole does queso. And then there's one I did not see coming, lump crab cakes. Right, I love a lump crab cake. So you don't have to go down the whole list, but, why is that guacamole good? Why is that queso good? Why is that crab cake good? What makes them good?
Man, well, the guacamole we make all day, I feel like. And the crazy thing about the crab cake, it's super unexpected. It is so popular. It's so good. And then something a lot of people don't know, but it is gluten-free. the way we make it.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And people will come in, and we get so many compliments off those crab cakes. People will be like, I eat crab cakes everywhere I go, all across America, and these are phenomenal. And I mean, it's just nonstop on those crab cakes. But yeah, as far as starters go, that is, we've got a triple dipper that you get one of each of those dips, and
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably 9 out of 10 tables get the triple dipper and get the crab cakes. Like they're all really popular.
I will be there, and I'll be getting crab cakes and probably both of those things. So, in the heart of the menu, I like the way it's presented. You got a lot of different things presented 5 ways. You can do it as a burrito, a taco, quesadilla, a naked burrito bowl, which probably gets to a little bit of the carb situation, I'd guess, or nachos. And you got chicken, you got shredded pork, you got jerk chicken, smoked shredded beef, smoked shredded pork, smoked chicken, pulled pork, couple of veggie options. So I would think that anybody that likes that kind of food can find something or many things they like and do them different ways. Is there anything in particular that are like the big sellers of that bunch?
Oh, yeah. In the Heights, our most popular item is probably the Cuban nachos. And then Benton prefers the pig suey items or the honey chipotle nachos. Those are the two here. Yeah. So
county to county taste differences. That's it.
I know.
And then, again, I already know that when I come and get my crab cakes and get my triple dipper, I'll be getting a margarita because it is house made with love and a lot of tequila. So, again, I know that's your writing. So are they just a good, freshly shaken up? Because I like mine not frozen, but on the rocks, no salt, please. I guess you just make a good margarita.
Yeah. Those we have, kind of like our Baja batch, and in the Heights, our bartender, Kathy, makes, just batch after batch in the mornings, and they do have a lot of tequila. All our drinks have a lot of alcohol. We definitely don't skimp on that. We max it out. And and then we have, oh my gosh, there's so many combinations, and we puree fresh fruit every morning, and sometimes morning and afternoon, that you can add into your margaritas, like strawberry, pineapple, mango, peach. But that's all like actual fruit that we puree and add into the margaritas if you want, if that's your jam.
Yeah, that sounds great. So are you and Craig burning up I-30 between the two, or do y'all kind of divide and conquer?
No, in the beginning I was hitting, or up until the past month, I would try to go to both, but Benton is so busy. The Benton Baja was so busy, and it's bigger. It seats twice as many people as the Heights location does. Like, just the patio at the Benton store is the size of the entire interior and exterior of the Heights. And so, Craig likes to camp and fish, and so that's kind of his thing, and my thing is the restaurant. Until last month when we added the other, I haven't been to the Heights as much because of doing that. And then I'm
sure you got a good crew that runs that for you.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure you always know what's going on. Yeah, and we'll come back and talk more about all that you got going on in Benton, because it's way more than just Baja Grill, as we mentioned early on. So we're going to take a quick break. We appreciate everybody listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. Our guest is Heather Baber-Roe, she of many operations, 3 of those, and soon to be 4 in one historic building in Benton, Arkansas, and then one very popular one in Little Rock, Arkansas. So hang on. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Welcome back to Heaping Spoonful, everybody. Now let's continue our conversation with Heather Baber-Roe. So when did the Baja Grill reopen in Benton, this time in bricks and mortar? in the Palace, which looks like a really cool renovated building downtown. Did those folks approach you guys and go, hey, why don't you come down and check out what we've got going on here?
Yeah, actually the mayor of Benton walked into Baja in the Heights and said, I'm here to bring you back to Benton. So we had a meeting in his office, and that's when we met the folks who redid it, Sean and Denise Hipskin, and we met them in that meeting.
Wow. And so were they developers, contractors or do they have folks do it? Or because I know they had the restaurant that you later bought, which we'll talk about in a minute. Are they restaurant people, or are they construction people, or are they both?
She is a realtor and he is a contractor, and so they're a nice little duo.
Yeah.
And so they bought a bunch of houses like on the strip downtown, and he renovated them, and they rent them out to people, and and so that's how that came about.
And kudos to the mayor for being big into economic development, because you want a mayor that gets directly involved in that stuff. So is the Palace, was it an old office building or an old other kind of building before they renovated it?
No, it had been abandoned for years. And when I show the staff, it was like an old library years and years ago. But it was just totally, I think the city was out to tear it down, and whenever the Hipskins bought it, and what it looked like, the before and after, I'm going to be posting them pictures probably this week, but like what it looked like the day that, we decided to do this thing, it was like, just the fact that Sean had that vision of what it looks like now, and, what it was, is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And that's great for Benton. I mean, look at the economic engine that's been, since they got it redone. And so you all opened a Baja there, and in that same building was Valhalla Kitchen and Bar. And obviously you knew about it. I don't know if you ate there, and it looked cool. And I've loved looking at the menu, which is completely different than Baja. And again, thanks to the internet and Arkansas Money and Politics magazine this time, I see that you all bought that from the couple that renovated or restored the Palace. And it appears, again, we're doing this in early November of 2021, it appears that was a moderately recent occurrence. Is that something you all thought about from the get-go, or is it just, again, they approached you and you said, man, that makes very efficient to have two spots in one building?
Yeah, Valhalla opened about a week before. We opened in April 2020 when dining rooms were closed down. The Benton store did, right. And Valhalla opened about a week or two before Baja did. They hadn't been in the restaurant business before, but I mean, the food is so good, and it is a beautiful restaurant. And we had told them, like, hey, if you ever want to get out of it, let us know. We'd rather be our own neighbors. And so then it and how it came about was I was looking at the spot for the new thing, and they mentioned that they were going to sell it, and they approached us and were, hey, do you want to buy Valhalla? And so that's how that came about.
Well, that's great. And again, I know there's efficiencies to having, you can share resources, and hopefully, I mean, obviously the menus are different, but do some ordering, and then, obviously you can consolidate the back office functions, which is great too. And then, so y'all haven't, looks like from what I read, you haven't made any menu changes, because it looks like it was the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of deal.
Yeah, we added some things. I mean, I don't even think the ink was dry, and I was like, I want a burrata on this menu. I love burrata.
Oh, so do
I'm contacting my Benny Keith rep, be like, this is what I found. Are there any others? Can I get samples? So we've added some items to it. And a lot of stuff, it was kind of, not wanting to tweak too much. We added like bigger pepperoni and stuff that, and a few items here and there. And we're going to continue to add some items that we didn't want to just shock the staff, the first 3 weeks of new ownership.
Sure. Well, I love burrata too. I mean, who doesn't love mozzarella with cream in the middle of it? So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I saw the meatballs and the burrata, and the pizza. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Raduno in the South Main area of Little Rock, which is a fabulous place as well, and have all of those items that are popular there. Now, like most restaurateurs either do or aspire to do, everybody wants to have an axe throwing establishment. So I guess that came along. That was part of the package deal with Valhalla. Was the axe throwing spot?
Yes, and it's
Yeah, it's a different sort of deal. So, how is that like a place people reserve, or can you just walk in and start chunking axes, or is it you're open certain hours, or how does that thing work?
Yeah, it's open in the evenings. We definitely tell people to reserve their lane because they do book up fast. And it actually, Craig just did a total overhaul of it. And we reopened it Thursday. We had it closed down for a little bit and we reopened it Thursday. And so now we went from 3 lanes to 5 lanes, and now it's kind of like different kind of targets and projected targets, and you can do different electronic games, and it's kind of like a glow throw. So it's pretty neat.
I will tell you, it's a really good kind of team building thing to do for like work groups or friend groups or church groups or something. Because there's one in downtown Little Rock that I've had some friends that have done too. So, and if that wasn't enough, the 2 Bajas, Valhalla, the axe throwing spot. Soon will come Baber Cocktails and Culinary, a new concept that's also going to be in the Palace just next door to your other operations there. I'm guessing at some point the Palace will be full and there will be no other expansion opportunities, but I haven't seen the place. So are you still looking at trying to get that open in early 2022?
We are. Yeah. And it's actually, the buildings are super close to each other. I want to say, 5 feet. There's a sliding glass in the Baber bar. There's a sliding glass window, and you could reach out, and if someone put their hand out on the Baja patio, you'd be able to like high five each other. They're very close to each other. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So I saw that Craig broke the news in June with this Facebook post, and I'm going to quote it directly. It says, a food writer recently wrote, "What does Heather Baber-Roe have planned next?" Well, it's coming. I want her to just chill for a bit. She doesn't know how. This place is going to be so good, so very good. Menu, concept, drinks, everything. Can't wait for you all to enjoy this place and the recipe she's kicking out, food and cocktails both. So what can you tell us about what you got in mind for what's going to be on the menu and what the vibe of the place is going to be?
Yeah, so we're going to have a tasting menu for people to come and try, and that will include things like short ribs and a chicken dish, gumbo, shrimp and grits, but all in smaller portions. That way you can try more than one. And then we're also going to have a charcuterie bar, and we want that where it's visible to the public, maybe behind glass where you can watch your boards being built. And we have this beautiful meat slicer with this daisy round handle that the charcuterie worker will spin to slice all the meats. We'll slice in-house. And we're going to have a handful of full-size entrees as well, and like a burger and a couple other things. I've been working on a burger recipe for about 1.5 years, and people keep asking me, how's that burger coming? So I just tried to perfect it. And then now it's kind of like taking on a life of its own. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing better be so good. And then I wanted, we're going to do wine flights, whiskey flights. I want to have, some high-end wines that are by the glass, that normally you'd have to buy the bottle for, but, have a select few that we do. Great. We do open that bottle so people can enjoy a glass, or, we'll have a little where you can do a glass and a half in a carafe if you don't want to commit to 2. So kind of do that thing. And I'm super excited about it. It's been, planning for years. So I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be here. It's going to be very surreal.
Yeah, that is really, really cool. And I'll tell you, that's going to be super popular. And, that's one thing you guys have done is you built brand equity. I mean, people know Baja and they know Valhalla now, and they're going to trust you. They're going to trust it's going to be good, and they're going to come in again. That kind of menu, there's going to be something for everybody. And I love the thought of not having to buy a whole bottle of a higher end wine to be able to try a glass or two. So more power to you, Heather. That is great. So You may not know. You may not want to say this out loud because Craig might freak out. But is that it, or are there more? Are there more concepts percolating in that overactive brain of yours, or you think you just get Baber-Roe and then we'll talk about it later?
So there's always ideas going on in my head, but I do tell Craig that this is it, and he tells people, he says, she says it's it. I don't believe it. So if it happens, I mean, he's not going to be shocked.
Yeah. Well, let's, we'll get this one off the ground, see how it's going. And that sounds really, really good. I'm and I want to talk about this in closing because, again, as I said, the internet is a podcaster's friend when it comes to doing research. But, based on what I've read about you and based on what you talked about, what you picked up from Jerry Bearcat in your own natural way, it seems like treating your employees like family is important to you. And, I've heard a lot of folks that talk about that since COVID hit. But I found an article with a video from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette from September 2018 about the campaign you led with others who raised money to buy a car for Kelly Toller, who at the time at least was your nighttime host at Baja and who'd been riding the bus for more than a year, catching a ride to come to work. And what a birthday present. And I watched the video and I watched his reaction and I teared up. I mean, just again, being nice and doing nice things for people. So tell our listeners about that effort in particular and your overall mindset about your employees.
Well, for Kelly's particular, for that thing, I can't take all the credit for that for sure because the staff, they put a lot into that as well. And that's the reason why it was recorded. So it was very weird. We've actually bought other employees' cars since then, but I do not record it. And the reason that was recorded was because one of the main masterminds behind it was sick and wasn't there. And Erin, you hear me like yelling on the phone, like Erin's sick, but she could not be there for that. So that's why it was recorded. And then the staff, because the staff did all pitch in money to buy that car, and so they had after repost it. Because I'm very weird about that. About like if you're doing a good deed, like you don't whip out your phone to, but anyway, but that was such a good thing because the staff, that Baja Heights staff, they all threw in money for that car and helped organize, we picking it out and, getting it there for the day it was given to him. And Kelly he's such a good guy and he deserved that for sure.
Well, that's nice. And again, I even saw that it said that some of the people who chipped in money to help buy Kelly a car didn't even have a car themselves. So maybe they're some of the ones who have a car now since then. Well, I love that you're looking out for them. I mean, I know they love it too, and it builds loyalty and longevity. And this day of tight labor markets, you want to hang on to your peeps, that's for sure. Well, listen, thank you so much, Heather, and continue good luck with Baja Grill, both locations. Valhalla and the opening of Rober. And thanks to all of you out there for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We post them the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So check out ones you've missed and keep an eye out for new ones. Goodbye, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.